Hello there my dear friends, and welcome back to another Star Wars video. So today we have some even crazier Star Wars movie updates, and this time we're focusing on Star Wars Starfighter. 2 days ago I covered the latest, but today we have even more updates, once again directly from Shawn Levy himself. There are plenty of new reveals for the movie, some good, and others a bit more concerning. Lots to get through in this one guys, and just before we dive in, if you've not done so, please be sure to hit the big subscribe button down below, ring the bell for notifications, but no more jibber jabber, let's dive straight in. So, a couple of days ago, Shawn Levy spoke about the freedom that Kathleen Kennedy gave him when crafting this movie. He's been filming in Europe for the last 7 months. Everything's going very well, they're beyond the halfway point. However, there was one small hiccup, a small comment he makes with huge implications. They had to rework the entire third act of the film. The original ending of the movie has changed, and he says that's what they're filming at the moment. We had a whole different idea for something in the third act, and then things didn't align, and I was forced to come up with a new idea, he says. And in case you don't know, in most screenwriting models, Act 3 contains the climax and the finale. The first act is the setup, Act 2 is the confrontation and rising action, and the third act is usually the resolution and finale. So we're getting a new ending to what was originally envisioned in some of those early scripts. Now before we go any further, it's very easy to overthink this and to go down speculation avenue and to come up with all kinds of conspiracy theories. But I do wonder if the rumors of Rey appearing at the end were initially true, but they changed it and they've scrapped that original plan. Maybe based on fan reactions to these rumors. We know it's plausible because Lucasfilm has done this kind of thing in the past, where they're the ones who put out rumors via their sources, via the trades, just to get a sense of where the fandom is at, just to see how fans respond. And I guess with the Rey stuff, if it was true, it might have been something that was one of many alternate endings, and perhaps because she was just rumored to appear right at the end, it was something easy to take out, and so maybe now the film leads to something new. And I say this with consideration for other things Shawn Levy has said. In every recent interview for Starfighter, he is adamant that there are no familiar characters, and I told you guys, I think it's a way for him to directly address the rumors without specifying them. For those worried about wide-sweeping sequel connections, even if Lucasfilm originally planned those, they might have changed it, because he talks about the third act of Starfighter like it's an entire course correction. And another thing that crossed my mind is back in 2024, when fans were speculating about the kind of film Shawn Levy was going to make. Those initial rumors spoke about Ben Solo, that it might be a direct continuation of Episode 9, but as Kathleen Kennedy once said, in the production process, plans change. The overarching plot for a story can change. But like I say, this is mostly speculation, nothing is confirmed on this front, but that's immediately where my brain went. But here's an important thing to keep in mind. There were no production issues on Starfighter. Filming is going very swimmingly, they're about 60% done, the villains are preparing to film some of their scenes in a month's time, and there hasn't been a huge debacle like on Rogue One or Solo. And so I hope the film is going to represent a singular, consistent story. But even though there is no tumultuous drama on this one, and thank goodness, I still wonder if this is going to be one of those Star Wars movies where in a couple of years' time, the original ending comes out through behind-the-scenes interviews, maybe another creator spills the beans, and we can look back and say, either we dodged a bullet, or we missed out on something better. But I think for the most part, seeing how fans responded to the recent Starfighter news, there is something of a relief that despite this film being set 5 years after Episode 9, there aren't going to be any major connections. Shawn Levy debunks the notion there are going to be legacy characters, or even sequel characters. So we've heard rumors about Ryan Gosling's character taking his nephew to Rey, we've heard about Mara Jade rumors, Luke Skywalker having a secret son. I think even if those were initial conversations within Lucasfilm, those are not going to be aspects reflected when the final movie drops in 2027. So moving on my dear friends, we have some more Star Wars Starfighter updates, and this is arguably one of the biggest wins the movie could have had. A couple of years ago, I think it was just after the pandemic, Kathleen Kennedy revealed that the next slate of Star Wars movies are all going to have the classic crawl. Even if we're done with the episodic Skywalker saga, the future movies are all going to have an opening crawl. Now honestly, because it's Lucasfilm and plans change all the time, I don't know if this is still true. But a big question that followed this is John Williams, who is now out of retirement, going to be scoring future Star Wars projects. And while Mando has Ludwig Göransson, when you're talking about James Mangold's Dawn of the Jedi, Star Wars Starfighter, the Rey movie, who was going to be passed down the torch and be given the responsibility of the next set of iconic Star Wars themes? Well, for Star Wars Starfighter, they got Thomas Newman. Now, as you guys know, I'm a musician. Thomas Newman is one of my biggest influences. Whether it's Shawshank, Elemental, Skyfall, Finding Nemo, WALL-E, Newman is one of the best composers of our time, hands down. And to make things even more exciting, for Starfighter he's written entirely new Star Wars themes, and Shawn Levy confirms he's not just remixing the classical John Williams themes, he is reinventing Star Wars with, quote, a big-hearted musical score. And heart is the best word to describe Newman. I for one am so excited by this. Another huge revelation from the interview, my friends, is that the one Star Wars movie that influenced Starfighter the most was Return of the Jedi. Now this can mean a ton of different things. I've seen some jokes on social media where people said we're going to see the Ewoks, but I don't necessarily think that's what Shawn Levy meant. If I were to guess, I think he's talking about the theme of family. Maybe the Force passed down through fatherly lineage, and that in many ways would tie into some of the rumors. Maybe conflicts within families, wrestling with identity, temptation and moral choice, celebration, hope for renewal, mentorship, and letting go. I would say that's pretty reassuring. Now I've saved the best reveal for last. Do you guys remember a few weeks ago, at a Disney event in Brazil, I spotted a poster of Starfighter with the Millennium Falcon on it, and at the time, because Disney was using fan art, especially on their Marvel posters, I said it's probably just a stand-in, just a coincidence, and it probably doesn't mean anything. But I'm glad others spotted that poster, and Shawn Levy was asked about it. They asked him directly, is the Millennium Falcon going to appear in the film? And he responded, quote, I'm not going to say anything, except my 10-year-old self is on set with me every day. And the overwhelming response is fans took this to mean that we are going to see the Falcon. And while I don't think it's impossible, whether it's Chewie flying it, or Rey, or Poe, or whoever, it goes against Shawn Levy's implication that there are no legacy characters. Again, he might be talking about generally speaking, most characters are new, but the fact he says his 10-year-old self comes to set with him, he's a big original trilogy guy, that's his point of nostalgia. And I guess to an extent, you can't avoid the resistance, post episode 9. So let's wait and see. But he didn't say no, and he really tried to dance around the question. And on the subject of exploring a new time period, he says, quote, we're inventing everything in the movie, and the desire to make design choices, character choices, planets, costumes, droids, aliens, all of it needs to feel Star Wars-y. But my guiding principle is that it's not a sequel, and it's not a prequel. So he wants fans to know that this movie is going to push the envelope. Are you excited by this? Let me know in the comments down below, my dear friends. And if you enjoyed this one, please be sure to give me a big fat thumbs up, subscribe if you're new, and if you want to support what I do while also getting access to bonus content, the link to my Patreon is down below. But I'll see you next time, my dear friends. May the Force be with you, always.